Gray, the most powerful and bloodthirsty king in the world, dies suddenly in his mid-30s of no apparent cause. Floating in the abyss, a voice urges him to seek out the light. He suddenly awakens in an alternate world as newborn Arthur Lewin, first son of retired adventurers Reynolds and Alice. At first he is furious to be reduced to a helpless infant, but he soon discovers humans in this world use an unfamiliar power called magic. Determined to protect himself by gaining as much power as possible, Arthur takes any opportunity he can to learn, reading his parents' books in secret. He discovers his new home is the continent of Dickathon, which contains 3 kingdoms: Sapin, the nation of the humans, Darv, the underground nation of the dwarves, and Elenoir, the forest nation of the elves. Having been a master of Kai in his old world, Arthur practices magic at every opportunity and casts his first spell at only 2 years old, injuring Reynolds and destroying their house. Having never experienced family in his former life, he is confused at the feelings of guilt and realizes he has learned to love his parents and cries for the first time in either of his 2 lives. Arthur recalls when an emissary from another nation attempted to assassinate him, so he executed the man's family to spare them years of torture, and the emissary thanked him. Reynolds begins teaching Arthur the sword and is astounded Arthur is already a skilled swordsman. Realizing he and Alice aren't capable of training Arthur, they move to Zyro City to find him an instructor. For the journey they hire their old party twin horns as bodyguards. Arthur learns Alice is an especially rare emitter mage who can use healing magic. Adam, twin horn spearman, decides to test Arthur's abilities, which Arthur loses as he is unfamiliar fighting with such a small body. Jasmine, twin horn scout, notices Arthur use Kai on his legs to increase his speed. After teaching her how, she gives him a knife. They are attacked by bandits seeking Alice. Reynolds reveals Alice is pregnant. Tax and Arthur is thrown from a cliff, but uses Jasmine's knife to drag the mage with him to protect Alice and his future sibling. As he falls, he realizes he understands why the emissary thanked him, feeling he can die happy knowing Alice will survive. Arthur awakens in the forest at the bottom of the cliff and is confronted by a terrible monster that greets him by name. The monster, named Sylvia, claims to be Arthur's ally and helps him recover. Afterwards, she shows Arthur he has been unconscious for days and his parents were forced to continue their journey without him. More time passes, and while Arthur wants to leave, the forest is full of monsters, and Sylvia cannot leave her cave. Sylvia shows Arthur it is possible to use magic whilst absorbing more from the environment at the same time, allowing spells to be cast indefinitely. However, she refuses to teach him while evil lives within his heart. Eventually, Arthur realizes he cannot repeat his former life of hatred and violence and swears to protect others. Meanwhile, another monster identical to Sylvia searches for her. After much effort, Arthur learns Sylvia's ability. The second monster locates Sylvia, who quickly hides Arthur. Sylvia reveals her true form as a white dragon and temporarily freezes time. She reminds Arthur of his promise to help others and gives him a magic crystal, one of her feathers, and a tattoo similar to her own body markings. After an emotional goodbye where Arthur acknowledges her as his adoptive grandmother, she uses the last of her magic to teleport Arthur as close to his parents as she can, unfreezes time, and attacks the other monster with an explosion that collapses the cave. Arthur awakens alone in the forest and begins his journey to survive until he finds his parents. Almost immediately, Arthur witnesses slavers transporting a young elf girl. He takes down 3 slavers in ambush attacks, but their leader turns out to be a mage whom Arthur eventually kills after a difficult magical duel. For a moment, the girl reminds him of a woman he once knew. Arthur tries to send the girl to her home of Elenoir, but realizes she is too young to travel on her own, forcing him to try lead her there. He learns she is Tesha Eralif and that she wants to train as a mage when she is old enough. Arthur realizes one of the slavers' pet wolves is following them, so he makes sure to stay on guard. The trip starts to annoy him since it is preventing him looking for his parents. He also begins to struggle with terrible pains from his mana core. During one such episode that leaves him immobile with pain, the wolf suddenly appears with food for them before leaving again. Arthur is confused, but Tesha is sure it is thanking them for setting it free. They eventually reach a teleportation portal Tesha recognizes as a gateway to Elenoir and quickly pulls him inside. Before Arthur can do anything, he is grabbed by elven soldiers while the suddenly uncaring Tesha watches. Tesha suddenly asks the soldiers to stop, but they plan to execute him. They are stopped by Tesha's grandfather Varian, the retired elven king, causing Arthur to realize Tesha is a princess. Her parents, King Alduin and Queen Muriel, demand Arthur be arrested, but Tesha simply shouts at them until they relent. Arthur remains confused why Tesha showed such hostility towards him when they first arrived. At the castle, he explains being separated from his parents and rescuing Tesha from the slavers, though he does not mention Sylvia. Arthur asks to be returned to Sapin, though Alduin explains the only portal to Sapin can't be opened for another 5 years, so after some more pressure from Tesha, he agrees to have guards escort Arthur on foot. Arthur begins to doubt his parents would even want him back. Tesha snaps him out of his sudden depression, and he realizes he was being foolish. Varian appears and requests a duel as he is interested in how Arthur defeated the slavers alone. Arthur wins, so Varian stubbornly requests a second duel, until Tesha scolds him for bullying. Varian offers to make Arthur his apprentice, as he has determined the pain in Arthur's mana core comes from having acquired the will of a beast, and if he doesn't train to use it, he will die. In his dreams, Arthur experiences the pain from his core as a shadowy monster. Varian decides to take Arthur to visit his old friend. He also warns Arthur that as heir to the throne, Tesha has often been manipulated by people pretending to be her friend. So if she trusts him, Arthur must be very special to her. Varian's friend is the elven sorceress Renia Darkasson, a diviner who can sense both the past and the future. With her help, Arthur is able to send a psychic message to his thrilled parents, telling them he is all right and will join them in Zyros once his illness is cured. Determined to see them again, Arthur agrees to become Varian's apprentice. Tesha insists on showing Arthur around Elenoir, but are confronted by several children Tesha knows, including Faerith Ivsar, one of the fake friends Varian mentioned. Angry Tesha prefers Arthur over him. Faerith challenges Arthur to a duel. Since refusing would dishonor Varian, Arthur accepts and knocks Faerith unconscious with one punch. The next day, Arthur starts his beast tamer training with Varian, determined to master everything Varian can teach him. 3 years later, Arthur and Tesha have grown up and become more powerful with their abilities.